The church was silent, save for the echo of Elena's heels clicking against the marble floor as she stood alone at the altar, her white dress pooling around her like a fallen cloud. Her family's voices still rang in her ears, sharp and unyielding. You can't marry her, Elena. Not until he's free. But she wasn't waiting anymore, not for a man she barely knew. Not for a family who couldn't see her heart. Elena's hands trembled as she clutched the bouquet of lilies, their petals bruised from her tightening grip. She was 28, and for years, she'd carried the weight of her family's expectations like a stone in her chest. They wanted her to wait for Daniel, her childhood friend, now a prisoner serving a sentence for a crime she didn't fully understand. They called it loyalty. She called it a cage. But then there was Maya, bold, unapologetic Maya, who'd stormed into her life 2 years ago like a summer hurricane. At 30, Maya was everything Elena wasn't. Fearless, with a laugh that could light up the darkest room and a heart that refused to bend. Their love had grown in stolen moments, late-night drives along the California coast, whispered confessions in dive bars, and quiet mornings tangled in each other's arms. Now, standing in this empty church in San Francisco, Elena knew she couldn't wait any longer. The doors creaked open and Maya stepped inside, her navy blazer sharp against the soft light filtering through the stained glass windows. Her short, jet-black hair caught the glow, and her dark eyes locked onto Elena's with a fierceness that made the world fall away. You don't have to do this their way, Maya said, her voice low but steady. You never did. Elena's breath hitched. She'd spent her life trying to please her parents, her church, her small tight-knit community in the Bay Area. They'd planned her wedding to Daniel since she was 16, a union meant to honor, a promise made when they were kids. But Daniel's arrest 5 years ago for armed robbery, a desperate act born of a troubled past, had frozen her life in place. Her family insisted she wait for his release, still years away. They didn't know about Maya. They didn't want to know. I'm done waiting, Elena whispered, her voice cracking. She dropped the bouquet, the lilies scattering across the floor like a broken vow. Maya crossed the church in 3 strides, taking Elena's hands in hers. The warmth of her touch was an anchor, pulling Elena back from the edge of doubt. Then let's go, Maya said, a spark of defiance in her eyes. Let's do this our way. They left the church hand in hand, the weight of tradition crumbling behind them. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold as they drove to a small courthouse in Oakland. It wasn't the wedding Elena had been raised to dream of, no white veil, no organ music, no proud parents in the pews. But it was hers. And it was Maya's. The clerk at the courthouse was a kind-eyed woman who didn't blink at their lack of witnesses or the urgency in their voices. You sure about this? She asked, glancing at their joined hands. Never been surer, Maya replied, squeezing Elena's fingers. Elena nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. They signed the papers, exchanged simple silver rings, and said their vows in a room that smelled of old wood and bureaucracy. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As they stepped outside, the night air cool against their skin, Elena felt a weight lift. For the first time, she was choosing herself. But the victory was bittersweet. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, her mother's name flashing on the screen. She didn't answer. She knew what they'd say. You're betraying us. You're betraying Daniel. Maya noticed the shift in Elena's expression. You okay? She asked, brushing a strand of chestnut hair from Elena's face. I don't know, Elena admitted. I love you, but they're my family. They'll never forgive me. Maya's smile was soft but fierce. Then we'll build our own family. One that doesn't make you choose between love and loyalty. They drove back to their small apartment in the Mission District, the city lights blurring past like stars. Elena leaned against Maya, her head resting on her shoulder as they navigated the quiet streets. The future was uncertain. Her family's rejection loomed like a storm cloud, and Daniel's release in 3 years would bring its own complications. But for now they were married. They were free. The next morning, Elena woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Maya humming in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching the glint of the silver ring on her finger. She smiled, but the moment was cut short by a knock at the door. Her stomach twisted. She knew that knock. Her brother, Carlos, always rapped twice, sharp and insistent. Elena! His voice boomed through the door. Open up. We need to talk. She froze, her pulse racing. Maya appeared at her side, her expression calm but guarded. You don't have to face him alone, she said. Elena nodded, steeling herself. She opened the door to find Carlos, his face a storm of anger and hurt. You got married? He demanded, holding up his phone, a photo of her and Maya at the courthouse already circulating online. Without telling us? Without waiting for Daniel. I couldn't wait anymore, Elena said, her voice shaking but firm. I love Maya. This is my life, Carlos. He stared at her, his jaw tight. You're throwing everything away. Mom's crying. Dad won't even speak your name. Do you know what this is doing to them? The words cut deep, but Elena stood her ground. What about what it's doing to me? She asked. I've spent years trying to be what you all wanted. I'm done. Carlos shook his head, his eyes dark with disappointment. Daniel's getting out soon. He's been asking about you. What am I supposed to tell him? Tell him I'm happy, Elena said, her voice breaking. Tell him I'm sorry, but I'm happy. Carlos left without another word, the door slamming shut behind him. Maya pulled Elena into her arms, holding her as the tears came. You did the right thing, Maya whispered. You chose us. But as Elena clung to her, she couldn't shake the ache in her chest. She'd gained a wife but lost a family. And somewhere, in a prison cell hundreds of miles away, Daniel was counting down the days until his release, unaware that the life he'd been promised was no longer his. The weeks after the wedding were a blur of quiet defiance and creeping guilt. Elena and Maya settled into their new life as a married couple, filling their apartment with small ritual Sunday brunches with pancakes and jazz, late-night talks about dreams they'd never dared voice before. But the silence from Elena's family was deafening. No calls, no texts, just an empty space where her parents' warmth used to be. Elena tried to focus on the present, on Maya's laughter and the way her eyes crinkled when she teased her about burning toast. But at night, when the city hummed outside their window, Elena's thoughts drifted to her childhood home in Daly City, to her mother's garden and her father's old record player. She wondered if they'd ever forgive her, if she'd ever forgive herself for breaking their hearts. Maya noticed the shadows in Elena's eyes. One evening, as they sat on their balcony overlooking the mission's colorful murals, Maya took her hand. You're carrying them with you, she said softly. Your family. You don't have to let them go, you know? They just need time. Elena shook her head, her chestnut hair catching the glow of the streetlights. They don't want me anymore, Maya. I saw it in Carlos's eyes. They think I betrayed them. You didn't betray them, Maya said, her voice firm. You chose yourself. There's a difference. But choosing herself felt like walking a tightrope. Elena's job as a graphic designer kept her busy, but every time she scrolled through social media, she saw glimpses of her old life cousins posting about family gatherings she wasn't invited to, her mother's church group sharing photos of events she used to attend. The exclusion stung, but what hurt more was the rumor circulating among her old friends. Daniel had heard about the wedding, and he was angry. Elena didn't know much about Daniel's life in prison. They'd exchanged letters, occasionally careful, polite notes that avoided anything too personal. He'd been her friend once, a lanky boy with a shy smile who'd shared her love of comic books and arcade games. But that was before the robbery, before the years of silence and her family's insistence that she stand by him. Now the idea of facing him filled her with dread. One afternoon, while Maya was at her job as a community organizer, Elena got a call from an unknown number. Her heart skipped as she answered, half expecting her mother's voice. Instead, it was Daniel's mother, Rosa, her tone clipped and cold. Elena, we need to talk, Rosa said. Daniel's been asking about you. He's up for parole soon, and he's expecting to come home to you. Elena's stomach churned. Rosa, I'm married now. I love Maya. I can't. You can't just walk away. Rosa snapped. You made a promise. My son's been through hell, and you're out there playing house with someone else. I'm not playing, Elena said, her voice trembling. This is my life. Rosa hung up without another word. Elena sat on the couch, staring at her phone, the weight of the call pressing down on her. She hadn't made any promises to Daniel, not really. It was her family who'd woven that narrative, tying her future to a man she hadn't seen in years. But the guilt still gnawed at her, sharp and relentless. When Maya came home, she found Elena curled up on the couch, her eyes red. "What happened?" Maya asked, dropping her bag and kneeling beside her. Elena told her about the call, her voice breaking as she recounted Rose's words. Maya's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone gentle. "You don't owe them anything, Elena. Not Daniel, not his mom, not your family. You're not responsible for their expectations." "I know," Elena whispered. "But it feels like I'm breaking something that can't be fixed." Maya pulled her close, her arms a steady anchor. "Then we'll build something new. Something better." The next day, Maya suggested they get away for the weekend, a road trip to Big Sur, where the cliffs met the sea in a wild, untamed dance. Elena agreed, desperate for a break from the weight of her thoughts. They packed a bag, loaded their old Jeep with snacks and a playlist of 90s pop, and drove south along Highway 1. The ocean stretched out beside them, vast and endless, and for a few hours Elena felt free. They stopped at a secluded beach, the sand cool beneath their feet. Maya kicked off her shoes and ran toward the water, laughing as the waves chased her back. Elena watched, her heart swelling with love. This was why she'd chosen Maya, her joy, her fearlessness, her ability to make every moment feel alive. But even there, in the shadow of the cliffs, Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Carlos. "Daniel's parole hearing is next month. He wants to see you. Don't do this to him." Elena's hands shook as she showed the message to Maya. For the first time, Maya's confidence faltered, her eyes darkening with worry. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I don't know," Elena admitted. "I don't want to hurt him, but I can't go back." "I won't." Maya nodded, her expression resolute. "Then we face it together. Whatever comes next." They returned to San Francisco the next day, the weight of the future settling over them like fog. Elena knew she couldn't avoid Daniel forever, not with her family and his intertwined, not with the expectations that still lingered like ghosts. But as she looked at Maya, her wife, her home, she felt a spark of courage. She'd chosen this life. Now she had to fight for it. The parole hearing loomed like a storm on the horizon. Elena tried to focus on her work, her designs for a local nonprofit's campaign, but her mind kept drifting to Daniel. She hadn't seen him in 5 years, not since the trial when he'd stood in handcuffs, his face pale and unreadable. She'd felt sorry for him then, but not enough to tie her life to his. Now, with his release approaching, the pressure from her family was relentless. Her mother called one evening, her voice heavy with disappointment. "Elena, you need to talk to Daniel," she said. "He's been through so much. You owe him that." "I don't owe him my life," Elena replied, her voice sharper than she intended. "You're being selfish," her mother snapped. "You think this choice of yours is love? It's a sin. It's a mistake." The words hit like a slap. Elena hung up, her hands trembling. She'd known her family's conservative beliefs would make her relationship with Maya hard to accept, but hearing it so bluntly still hurt. She didn't tell Maya about the call, she didn't want to burden her, but Maya sensed the shift, her dark eyes searching Elena's face for answers. "You're pulling away," Maya said one night as they lay in bed, the city's hum a faint backdrop. "Talk to me." Elena sighed, turning to face her. "It's my mom. She thinks I'm making a mistake. That I'm wrong." Maya's jaw tightened, but her touch was gentle as she brushed Elena's hair back. "You're not wrong. You're the most right thing I've ever known." Elena smiled, but the ache in her chest didn't fade. She wanted to believe Maya's words, but the voices of her family, her church, her past were loud. She felt caught between two worlds, one where she was loved for who she was, and one where she was judged for it. The day of Daniel's parole hearing arrived, and Elena agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near the prison, a neutral space where they could talk. Maya offered to come, but Elena shook her head. "I need to do this alone," she said. "I need to close this chapter." The coffee shop was small, with mismatched chairs and the smell of burnt espresso. Daniel walked in, looking older than she remembered, his shoulders broader, his face marked by faint scars. He was 29 now, his once boyish features hardened by years behind bars. He smiled when he saw her, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Elena," he said, sitting across from her. "You look different." "So do you," she replied, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. They talked for a while, stilted at first about small things, his plans to work construction, her job as a designer. But the weight of the unspoken hung between them. Finally, Daniel leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "I heard you got married," he said, his voice low. "To a woman." Elena nodded, her throat tight. "Her name's Maya. I love her, Daniel." His jaw clenched, and for a moment he looked away, his eyes fixed on the window. I thought you'd wait for me," your family said. "My family doesn't get to decide my life," Elena interrupted. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I care about you, but I never promised you anything." "Not like that." He laughed, a bitter sound. "You know how many nights I got through in there thinking about you? Thinking we'd have a life when I got out." The guilt hit her like a wave, but she pushed it down. "I didn't ask you to do that," she said softly. "I'm not the answer to your pain." Daniel stared at her, his expression a mix of anger and hurt. "Your family's right. You've changed." "Maybe I have," Elena said. "But it's for the better." She left the coffee shop with a heavy heart but a clearer mind. Daniel wasn't her responsibility. Her family wasn't her judge. She drove home to Maya, who was waiting with a warm mug of tea and a quiet understanding. "You okay?" Maya asked, pulling her into a hug. "I will be," Elena said, leaning into her. "I just need time." But time, it seemed, was not on their side. A week later, Elena's father showed up at their apartment, his face lined with exhaustion. "Your mother's sick," he said without preamble. "She's in the hospital. She wants to see you." Elena's heart stopped. "What's wrong with her?" "Her heart," he said, his voice breaking. "Stress, the doctors say. She hasn't been the same since you left." The words were a knife twisting in her chest. She wanted to scream that she hadn't left, that they'd pushed her away, but the fear in her father's eyes silenced her. "I'll come," she said. Maya drove her to the hospital, her presence a steadying force. In the sterile white room, Elena's mother lay frail and small, and Ford dripping beside her. Her eyes softened when she saw Elena, but there was a distance there, a wall that hadn't existed before. "I'm sorry," her mother whispered. "I just wanted what was best for you." Elena took her hand, tears stinging her eyes. "I know, Mom. But I'm happy. Can't that be enough?" Her mother didn't answer, but the grip on her hand tightened. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The hospital became a second home over the next few weeks. Elena visited her mother daily, balancing work and worry while Maya held their life together, cooking meals, keeping the apartment tidy, offering quiet support. But the strain was showing. Elena's mother was stable, but her recovery was slow, and every conversation carried the weight of unspoken judgment. One afternoon, as Elena sat by her mother's bedside, her father pulled her aside. "We need to talk about Daniel," he said, his voice low. "He's out now. He's staying with his mom and he's struggling." Elena's stomach twisted. "I've already talked to him, Dad. I can't be what he wants." Her father's eyes narrowed. "This isn't just about you, Elena. It's about family. About doing what's right." "Doing what's right?" Elena snapped, her voice rising. "What about what's right for me? I'm married, Dad. I love Maya. Why can't you accept that?" Her father looked away, his shoulders sagging. "We raised you to be better than this." The words stung, but Elena was done apologizing. She left the hospital, her heart pounding with a mix of anger and resolve. When she got home, Maya was waiting, her expression cautious. "What happened?" she asked. "They still think I'm wrong," Elena said, her voice breaking. "They'll never stop." Maya pulled her close, her arms a safe haven. "Then we stop trying to change them. We live our truth, Elena. That's enough." But living their truth wasn't easy. Daniel's release brought new complications. He started showing up at places Elena frequented, a coffee shop near her office, the park where she and Maya walked on weekends. He never approached her, but his presence was a shadow, a reminder of the life she'd left behind. One evening, as Elena and Maya were leaving a local art gallery, Daniel was waiting outside, leaning against a street lamp. His face was drawn, his eyes tired but intense. "Elena," he called, stepping forward. Maya stiffened, moving protectively in front of Elena. "What do you want, Daniel?" she asked, her voice sharp. I just want to talk, he said, his gaze fixed on Elena. Alone. Elena hesitated, her heart racing. Maya's hand found hers, a silent question. Elena squeezed back, then stepped forward. Okay, she said. But Maya stays. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he nodded. They walked to a nearby bench, the air thick with tension. I'm trying to start over, Daniel said, his voice low. But everywhere I go, people are talking about you. About your marriage. I'm sorry you're hurting, Elena said, her voice steady. But I'm not going back. I love Maya. That's not going to change. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. You were supposed to be my future, he said, his voice breaking. I held on to that for 5 years. Elena's throat tightened. I didn't ask you to, she said softly. I'm not your salvation, Daniel. You have to find that yourself. He stared at her, then stood abruptly, walking away without another word. Maya pulled Elena into a hug, her warmth grounding her. You okay? She asked. I think so, Elena said, though the encounter left her shaken. She knew Daniel wasn't a threat, not really, but his pain was a mirror to her own. She'd hurt people by choosing herself, and that truth was hard to carry. The next day, Elena's mother was discharged from the hospital. Elena and Maya drove her home. The car ride silent except for the hum of the engine. At the house, Elena's father met them at the door, his expression unreadable. Thank you, he said, his voice gruff, for being here. Elena nodded, but she didn't stay. She couldn't, not yet. As they drove back to the city, Maya reached for her hand. You're doing the right thing, she said. Even if it hurts. Elena looked at her, the woman who'd become her home, her strength. I know, she said. But it's hard to let go. That night they sat on their balcony, watching the city lights flicker like stars. Elena felt a shift inside her, a quiet acceptance that her family might never fully understand her. But that didn't make her love for Maya any less real. She was building a new life, one where she could be whole. Months passed and the wounds began to heal, though the scars remained. Elena's mother grew stronger, and though their conversations were cautious, there was a tentative warmth creeping back. Her father was slower to soften, but he stopped mentioning Daniel, a small but significant shift. Carlos too began to reach out, his texts short but less angry, a sign that time was doing its work. Elena and Maya built their life with intention, filling it with love and small acts of defiance. They hosted dinner parties for their chosen family friends who celebrated their marriage without judgment. They volunteered at a local LGBTQ+ center, helping others navigate the same struggles they'd faced. And they dreamed of a Futuria house by the sea, maybe a dog, a life where they could be unapologetically themselves. But Daniel remained a shadow. He'd moved to a nearby town, working odd jobs and keeping his distance, but his presence lingered in Elena's mind. She didn't hate him, she pitied him in a way, for the life he'd lost and the one he was still searching for. One spring morning, as Elena and Maya walked through Golden Gate Park, they saw Daniel sitting on a bench, sketching in a notebook. He looked up, his eyes meeting Elena's, and for a moment time seemed to pause. Then he smiled a small, genuine smile and nodded. Elena nodded back, a weight lifting from her chest. It wasn't forgiveness or closure, not exactly, but it was an acknowledgement. A letting go. That evening, Elena got a letter from her mother, handwritten and slipped under their apartment door. It was short, just a few lines. I don't understand your life, Elena, but I love you. I'm trying. Tears welled in Elena's eyes as she showed the letter to Maya. It's not everything, she said, her voice trembling. But it's something. Maya pulled her close, kissing her forehead. It's enough for now, she said. They stood together, the letter resting on the table, a fragile bridge to a family that might one day accept them fully. Elena knew the road ahead would be long. Her family's beliefs were deeply rooted, and Daniel's presence would always carry a trace of what might have been. But she also knew she'd made the right choice. Her wedding hadn't been the one her family envisioned, no church, no veil, no groom waiting at the altar. But it had been hers, a vow made in love and defiance, a promise to live authentically. She'd married Maya without them all, and in doing so she'd found herself. As the sun set over San Francisco, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Elena took Maya's hand. I'd do it all again, she whispered. Every single moment. Maya smiled, her eyes bright with love. So would I. They stood on their balcony, the city sprawling before them, a testament to the life they'd built together. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And that was enough. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.